am Marla, by the way, and thank you for coming. How many of you guys have been to a Women in Engineering event before? Oh my gosh, that's awesome. I'm going to take that as a huge compliment to our planning group that you're back. So thank you, because we have just really had so much fun bringing this group together, and Mandy has just done a fabulous, fabulous job with spearheading this and bringing us all together and helping to get some just, I think, really needed attention on topics surrounding women in the technical fields, and most specifically our field, engineering. Thank you. She really hates it when I go off script, but I do it all the time, so she's used to it. I have a couple of quick housekeeping details with you, if you don't mind. Make sure, I have a brand new phone, so I had to make sure it was in silent. If you would please do the same with your phones, especially since we're on video, we will pick it up, so good time to check, right? My old phone didn't have a ringer anymore, so it was always on silent. It was easy. There's also pen and paper at the end of every row. So if you should think of a question and don't have a writing instrument, please wave to the person next to you and see if they'll pass you something down. But we're going to reserve questions until the end of all 4 speakers. So I just wanted you to, I don't remember anything longer than about 2 seconds, so I've learned to write things down quickly. This is what happens when you hit middle-aged young ladies. Just too much stuff in your heads, right? But I'm just really excited you're here tonight. This year has been a sheer delight, and I'm just thrilled with how this program has evolved and where we're going with this. So tonight, we're going to focus on a new topic for us, and that's how women can really make an impact. And if you're listening to what's going on around us, you're hearing this in a lot of different venues right now. The topic has just been ratcheted up so much. And I belong to 3 different women in business groups, several of them with some of you in the room. But this is just becoming a really, really key topic. I think we're really starting to understand how undervalued this marketplace and our perceptions of ourselves and how we contribute and how we make an impact has been perceived. Obviously, we know that we do a kick job, right? So we now have the opportunity to really help to spread that. And for the younger ladies in the room, we love the opportunity to get all of us together to move this forward in a way that maybe none of us have thought of yet. So great panel tonight to talk to you guys about what's going on. I'm going to kind of point to each of them, although they'll come up. Jan Holloway over here. And then we have Ann McMahon. I'm going to mix it up just so you guys don't know. Kristin Tucker and Nicole Young. So you're going to hear for about 10 minutes from each of them talking about different ways that women can and have impacted our profession, our communities, our lives, really. So there's going to be some really cool stuff. You've all, how many of you guys have been to 13 Carnival? Oh, if you get a chance to go this weekend, it's really cool. As a collegian, I participated, I was in a sorority, I'm a Pi Phi, so we always had a facade. And if you guys aren't familiar with facades, they're little 10 to 20 minute musical skits. Or at least they were in my day. I don't know if they still are. But I'm assuming that they are, because I saw some of the girls running in to use the restrooms. But it's really fun. So in addition to the carnival atmosphere, you also have that aspect with all the little musicals. It raises money for a different charity every year, but it is a great tradition at Washington University. If you get a chance to spread the word, that's going on this weekend, as well as reunion weekend. How many of you guys have a big reunion this weekend? Any of you? Yeah, I've got my 30th. Yes, I'm 52 years old. I just tell you that. Don't even do the math. I graduated in 1984, so I get to show up and see some of my classmates this weekend. Actually, 2 of our committee chair people are engineers, too. It's a husband-wife team. So it's really fun, because I've known them since, I guess, my freshman year in college. A long time. So if you get a chance to partake, please do. We'd like to start the evening with Dr. Ann McMahon. Can I just say Dr. Ann? It sounds like Dr. Phil, but Dr. Ann. I like that. And I am not going to read everything to you because she's an amazing bio. And I had an opportunity to meet Ann. One of our first events, she and I sat down at the same table, and I looked at her and I said, you need to get involved with our group because you're about everything we stand for. And I want to give you my version of the highlights. So now that Mandy's written my beautiful script, and I'm going to just completely deviate from it. But Anne is not only an engineer, she is an educator. And this is a beautiful union, because one of the things, what's one of the biggest crises we're seeing right now, is getting enough people, especially women, especially other underrepresented groups, to become a member of the technical professions, to study technically. I can't tell you, I'm also in the builders group, I'm in the Home Builders Association. And we're doing the same thing. How do we get women to understand that the building trades and the construction aspect of life, oh, by the way, technical, is so important. So Anne has done amazing work in bringing together the education side, the STEM side, the science, technical, engineering, and math. Did I get all that right? Oh, my goodness. And the engineering side. And that's what's needed, is we need this translation, right? We need to bridge that gap. We need to help everybody to understand how critical it is to pull all of those things together. So I have to tell you, absolutely fascinated with meeting Anne that first night, and I'm so, so very glad that she has been coming back time and time again, and I am so deeply honored that you would come tonight to speak to us and give us some of your perspectives, some of your insights, and some of the things you have learned from your experiences with engineering and education. And with that, Anne.
Okay, let's get started. Thank you, Marla, for that introduction. I really appreciate it. I want to talk to you a little bit about some of the research I've been doing in my doctoral work, and then in the work I've done beyond that. As you know, if you've Googled K through 12 engineering, you can find a whole lot of interesting challenges out there, interesting engineering challenges. You've heard of projects like Lego Robotics, Project Lead the Way. All of those are really wonderful ways for engineers to get involved in K-12 education. But what I learned as a researcher is that I studied the mental models that teachers have about what engineers do. And it turns out that we as engineers, we really love the cognitive part of engineering. I mean, that's why we spent as many years as we did getting engineering degrees. What the insight that teachers can give us, though, is that the social and emotional part of engineering is hugely important, especially in the K-12 years, and that's what I want to talk about today. So we know there are cognitive engineering challenges out there, but what I want to talk to you about are the non-cognitive aspects of engineering and what we know from neuroscience, what we know from education, what we know from several different lines of research about how to help kids learn and how the non-cognitive aspects of learning affect the cognitive aspects. So let's talk about some drivers of cognitive capability. The lines of psychodynamic research, psychodynamic psychology, talk about attachment as being really, really important. So what is attachment? Attachment goes way, way back to when we were first born. So as a baby, when a baby cries and gets his or her needs met promptly, consistently, reliably, that baby develops an understanding of the world, that the world's going to meet his or her needs. And so the baby begins to feel secure, that if I cry, if I reach out, my needs are going to be met. And that's what researchers mean when they talk about attachment, this trust that the world will meet your needs. So that happens in infancy. We develop an expectation of what the world will give us that carries through our entire lives and in fact sets the template for the relationships we have later on. So it's enduring, it influences our present relationships. Now, there's another interesting new line of research about scarcity. And scarcity is perceived scarcity. Some of it is absolute. One has enough to eat or doesn't. But some of it is perceived, and that's what actually really matters, is the perception of scarcity. That happens in the present. It could be situational. For children, it might be mom or dad lost their job, and so we don't get to do some of the things we used to do. Some children, I've worked mostly with very high needs populations, they wonder what's going to happen for their next meal. They wonder about where they're going to be living a week from now. So some of it is situational, some of it is enduring and long-term. Response to failure. There's also a line of research about what we say to ourselves when we fail. And that's really important in thinking about K-12, because as engineers, you know that failure is part of what we do. We fail forward. School isn't set up that way. Failure is not perceived the same way in school, and so we'll talk a bit about that. And then finally, emotional state. There's a lot of research, especially around trauma, around how emotions affect how we think. So let's talk about attachment style. As I said before, if a baby gets their needs reliably and consistently met, they develop what's called a secure attachment. And so they're open to intimacy, they're open to creating interdependent relationships, they seek connection. If the behaviors between caregiver and child take a different turn early on, one can develop less than secure attachments. And there are three different categories of that. One is preoccupied. This person really wants to be connected and is obsessed with being connected. You know, they're always seeking a relationship because they're afraid of not having one. There are people who are fearful. They've been in intimate relationships with a caregiver, with others in their lives, and they've gotten burned. And so it's not a secure thing for them. And then finally, there are those that are avoidant, and they also shy away from relationships because they've also had their needs not met when they were very young. So attachment is very early, happens very early and continues. Now let's talk about scarcity. The people who studied this studied 4 different types of scarcity. Scarcity of relational support. We all need connection in our lives, and some people feel lonely, they feel disconnected, and that can affect how one thinks. Scarcity of food. We've all heard that when children come to school hungry, they're not ready to learn. They can't think as well. Scarcity of money. If one is worried about feeding a family or worried about being able to go on a field trip, that sort of thing, it affects how we think. And then we've all experienced scarcity of time. So if you don't have enough time, it affects how we think, it affects how we behave. So how does that happen? What happens in the presence of scarcity is that we start to tunnel. So if you've ever had a major deadline and you don't have enough time, you tunnel on that deadline and other things are outside of the tunnel that would normally be inside of the tunnel. So the laundry doesn't get done, other obligations get put on hold until that deadline is met and the scarcity of time lets up. And so what happens for children is that if their basic needs are not getting met and they're experiencing scarcity, then they tunnel on what they're concerned about, the needs that are not getting met. And so things like learning, things like planning, things like thinking about possible careers don't fall inside the tunnel of attention that they have. And so they focus on trade-offs for getting needs met instead of considering everything, all the opportunities that may be available to them. They tunnel and they focus on trade-offs in order to get needs met. And there's empirical research to back this up. So let's talk about the research around failure. The research around failure is really interesting because it turns out we talk about failure inside ourselves to preserve our self-worth. And these researchers found 4 different messages that people tend to tell themselves about failure. So people who are success-oriented may have had really good attachment experiences, tend to be pretty secure people. They'll say, wow, failure's going to help me improve. There are people who are overstrivers, who, and I have to cop to that one myself. So I was an overstriver for a long time. I will do anything to succeed because I'm worthless if I fail. So that was a result of my own personal early childhood. I came from a pretty challenging family circumstance, and so my ticket out was my education. So that's the message that I lived with for a while, for a long time. Failure avoiding. These are the kids who have a lot of potential, but they're afraid to try, because if they try and fail, the self-talk is that they're worthless. So their logic is, I can't be worthless if I don't try. And then finally, failure accepting. These are the kids who, no matter what they do, whether they fail or succeed, they're a failure anyway, so they give up. And they attribute any success they have to the teacher giving them a break or something lucky that's happened. So they don't internalize their own successes. So finally, emotional state. How many of you have watched a toddler have a tantrum? Yes. When we get emotionally aroused, we get emotionally upset, there comes a point where there is no reasoning. And this is a line of neuroscience research that as one gets emotionally aroused, that can be alarm, fear, terror, the cognitive part of the brain shuts off. So when we're calm, we have the thinking part of our brain fully functional. As we start to feel fear, alarm, the part of our brain that thinks goes offline. And the more primitive part of our brain kicks in. So if you've ever dealt with a toddler during a tantrum, they are just reacting. So there is no reasoning. And that happens with school kids too. If they're afraid, the thinking part of their brain is not engaged. So all of these things add up. And when you consider attachment, their way of working with relationships, their way of being in the world, when you consider their perceived experience of scarcity, the self-talk they have about failure, and their current emotional state, and emotional state varies from moment to moment, during the day, what's left over is what they have available for cognitive learning, for learning. So you can see that these things, the four boxes below available cognitive resources, they can take a lot from a child who is in a learning situation. So let's talk about some of the things we can do. What the researchers discovered that a remedy for perceived scarcity is something called slack. And slack is a space created by abundance that allows more cognitive flexibility. It prevents or it negates the need to do trade-off thinking. So slack in relationships might be reaching out to form a bond with a child so that they realize there's somebody to lean on. Now, let's talk a little bit about engineering and what we do in the schools. The engineering design process you see in the center, it's an 8-step design process, begins with identifying a problem or need, goes through researching the problem, brainstorming solutions, selecting a solution to prototype, testing the prototype, communicating, and then redesigning. There are various forms of this cycle. Some of them are 4 steps, some of them are 5 or 6. This is an 8-step. What I've done is I've superimposed or surrounded that with what I call a circle of insecurity. And this is the non-cognitive piece of engineering. So when we as engineers know that when we start a problem, there's ambiguity and uncertainty, and we have a system, our engineering process, for systematically reducing the ambiguity and uncertainty. We fail forward, and in the process of failing forward, we are in conflict with our design team. Engineering's a team sport. So we use conflict, debate, what solutions do we have? How are we going to negotiate different needs of different kinds of engineers around the same solution? So conflict is inherent in the engineering process. Failure is inherent in the engineering process because we never design something once and it's done. So for teachers and kids, this circle of insecurity is something they need our help to navigate. So again, when we think about the social and emotional tasks in the engineering design process, we want to engage uncertainty and ambiguity. So there's constraints in the problem, the engineering problem, there's criteria for success, and then if we're designing something that people are actually going to use, we need to have empathy for the user. We want to teach teachers and students how to use conflict and repair relationships that may be stretched because of the conflict. So there's my ideas, there's your ideas, there's the user's ideas. They all have to be merged. And then finally, when we prototype, to embrace the failing and fail forward. So engineering can be the great curriculum integrator and the great social and emotional integrator, because when you're working in a team, you have more cognitive bandwidth. We all put our ideas and our talents together. We have many opportunities for learning different topics in school that they might be dealing with, because you have to come back and you have to redesign. There's relational flexibility. They learn how to be in conflict with each other and be okay afterwards. And then they also can practice reframing their internal narratives about failure. We all fail forward. We fail forward as teams. We fail forward as a class. So those are key understandings that really aren't nurtured in the K-12 setting. So how can we make a difference? So you can go in and use some of those really great challenges that are already out there, but add this sort of thing to it. So respond to their attachment style. Be a safe and secure relationship. So be available, responsive, sensitive, and encouraging. So encourage them to explore and fail. Address perceived scarcity. So you can be a listener. Reflect back to them. Are you trading that? Why are you trading this off? What's the trade-off here? And let's talk about the tunneling thinking. And then reframe failure. The best thing you can do is talk to them about times when you failed, because it's part of being a good engineer. And it's a constructive thing. So be vulnerable and tell them about your own failures. And then validate their emotions. So share stories about why engineering makes you happy, what satisfies you. How does it satisfy you? How does it make you feel like you belong to a team, to a project? And then share stories of when you disagreed with people on your team and how it worked out, how you resolved it, and how you moved forward to work with those people again. So that's what I've been working on for the last several years, and I appreciate your coming here to listen, and if you'd like to contact me about it afterwards, there's my information, so thank you.
And, hey, I have a question for you.
Yes.
Aren't we the same year? Are we the same year? Did we figure this out? Or are you younger than me?
No, you're younger than me.
I don't think so. I think we had this discussion. I wanted to tell you something I didn't share with you guys about Anne. She was recently recruited. I had to read this because I couldn't remember all the big words in it. by the Pacific Science Center in Seattle to serve as their Vice President of Science and Education. And I think that is such a wonderful celebration of what you are sharing with us. And I love Fail Forward. That is awesome. I got to take it back to my women's coaching group because they're going to love it. It's just so cool. And by the way, I don't know if you guys noticed that our dean joined us back here. Okay. So next, and I'm so honored. I've had the opportunity to get to know all but one, and Kristin, we're going to get to know each other. I know. Tonight's it's my big opportunity. There you go. But I have had so much fun getting to know so many of you guys, and Nicole is most assuredly one of those. And so she and I met through a mutual friend who one day, she goes, you know, I have this really smart engineering friend, and you're an engineering smart person. I'm like, well, thank you. But you two have to meet. So, because of the Women in Engineering program I told her about, so I call up Nicole, we agree to get together. Well, I find out after I look her up, after I've called her, that she's the president of SWE. And I'm like, whoa, boy, okay, what have I walked into? And actually, it has been the most serendipitous thing that could have possibly happened. We have become, I swear we knew each other in a past life, because we've become great friends, and what's even cooler about this is that we have been able to have Women in Engineering and SWE partner on all kinds of stuff. And there's just this fabulous synergy that is going on with the two organizations. And I get teary-eyed when I talk about it, because it really truly was from the universe, or whatever higher up you want to celebrate. But Nicole is also, we serve in the Women and Entrepreneurs of St. Louis group together as well. So we are fellow entrepreneurs, and she set out on her own. She is an extremely talented engineer in her own right, but she also is the owner of her own company. So we've had a lot of fun figuring out and discovering how to kick it again and how to move forward. And I apologize, I don't even remember what your topic is. Mentoring. Oh, and my gosh. This young lady, we'll all be young ladies today, right? She mentors up and down, and I have watched her in action on the dime address some really challenging topics, and I think all of us need to feel that safety in a mentorship, and Nicole's been just an amazing person to do that. So without further ado, Miss Nicole.
First of all, I want to thank Mandy for not telling me that we're videotaping this today. And I feel like, women are often criticized for their hair and their wardrobe. I am actually going to a fundraiser later today, so I'm probably a little bit more overdressed than I normally would be. I'd usually be up here in a business suit. But I feel like women oftentimes are our own worst critics, and so I ask you all to forgive me, and you on the cameras up there. Society of Women Engineers does have a function that we call the Sweet Talks, and we get together the first Monday of the month and talk about those types of issues and other issues that we deal with as women in the workplace and women in engineering, so I'd invite you all to come to that. SWE is a fantastic organization. I really only got involved a very short time ago and have found it to be one of the most valuable things I've done in a long time. We do talk a lot about mentoring in SWE and in the other organizations I work with. And some of the programs we've talked about doing, we're actually shaping differently because of Anne. Anne and I got to know each other last year. Seems like a long time ago now. I'm so sorry that St. Louis is losing her. I know she'll keep connected here. But her work and her inspiration is really shaping the way we're doing things at SWE and the Engineers Club. And we hope to keep her engaged in what we're doing. Every time I meet with her, I learn something new, and the response to failure, I'm definitely one of those overachievers. But to get into mentoring, mentoring is really about getting advice, listening, and helping to define the problem. It's something that prepares you for the next thing that you're doing. How many of you have been told you need to get a mentor? How many of you actually have a mentor? And how many of you have mentored someone else? Okay. How many of you have a sponsor? Or have ever been told that you need to get a sponsor? just as Anne sort of flips around the idea of STEM and how we do STEM, I came to Anne talking about we want to go do STEM outreach and we want to go, talk to girls about getting into engineering. And she said, whoa. And I've done a lot of that, and I've done a lot of mentoring. And you have to ask the question after a certain period of time, why are we doing this and what are we getting out of it? And when I learned from Anne how we really do need to flip the educational model, it started making a lot of sense to me. And so, we're changing the way we're doing things. But I think us as women, we need to look at how we're doing things on the mentoring side as well. Women are over-mentored and under-sponsored. A sponsor, if you don't know, is someone in your organization that's up high, that can pull you up. There's someone that acts in your best interest over the course of your career. They're hard to come by. You can't just walk up to someone and say, hey, will you sponsor me? It doesn't work like that. I think oftentimes we say, hey, can you mentor me? And people say, okay, I know what that is. And, well, yeah, sure, we can sit down once a month or whatever. And you do learn some lessons from that, but it's not something that really pulls you up into your career. A sponsor is really someone who enables your dreams. So a mentor is someone that can help you figure out what your dreams are. A sponsor is someone that helps you make them real. They put you on that path to power, and they're really usually a senior champion that's willing to advocate for you in your organization. There's three things that they majorly help you with, and that's pay raises, high-profile assignments, and promotions. I just want to give a little anecdote from my career to give you an example of how this can work, and then we'll talk about how you can find a sponsor. I was a junior engineer at what was then the Sverdrup Corporation, now Jacobs Engineering, and I spent 10 years with them. At the end of my tenure with them, I spent my last 2 years running their federal operations program in Europe, and I was responsible for Italy, Germany, and the UK. And over the course of my tenure there, there's no way I could have gotten to that position without the help of some very key people in that organization. My second year with them, and this is, goodness, I hate to start naming dates, but when was this? 90, 98, maybe 99? 99, I'm guessing. I had someone come to me and they asked me, would you be willing to be in this new program? We're talking to some young engineers and we think you're the perfect model for this. And they brought me in, and it turns out this program was built to encourage people like me to stay with the company. And they got me introduced across the company, and I actually got to meet everyone all the way up to Dr. Joe Jacobs before he passed away. It was a huge honor to get to sit down and have lunch with him. But in the course of that, I met a guy named Mike Higgins. Mike, Jacobs has 12 vice presidents for a corporation of 40,000 people, $1 billion in revenue. And Mike was one of the top 12 people in that company. And I'm not sure why he took a liking to me. It could be a number of things, but I think mostly it was because I volunteered, I proved myself, and I was willing to step up when it was needed. And Mike grabbed me for a number of assignments, and at the age of something like 28 years old, told me that I was going to go over to Europe to run a major division of their corporation. A guy like that is a guy that you want on your side, someone that can pull you up, give you assignments like that, double your salary in the course of a year. I said they're hard to find. It's not something that you can just walk up to somebody. And I think all of you in your organizations, you can put yourselves in positions where you can be around those types of people, find ways to create value for them. It's about demonstrating your ability to consistently perform and help them shine. If you can be around those people and you can help them do a better job, they're going to want to have you around them and keep you in the organization. So if you can identify the people in your organization that you find similar values, that you think you can help them build bench strength in the organization, help them accomplish their vision, and then find ways to put yourself in situations where you can help them and volunteer for them, for their projects, they will then support you. So there's a two-way street there as far as working for them and having them work with you. And I just wanted to comment, women in engineering, there's about 20% of us. There have been about 20% of us in the industry since I got out of school, which is sad to me. It kind of peaked for a while and then it's dipped back down. We all need to work on that. So we need to get out and mentor others. You know, we're all looking at being moved up into our organizations, and we do need those sponsors to help pull us up there. We need mentors to help us get along. But we need to take the time to get out and sit with other women that are looking at getting into engineering and encourage them. And I was talking earlier, I love what I do. It's so much fun. I'm a civil engineer. I get to work with communities and plan how we grow as communities and provide services to our citizens and water, wastewater, transportation, transit. It's amazing to me. I wake up every morning and I'm excited to work on projects. But we need to get out and share that message with other women and tell them this is something you can do. The other side of that is, as you move up in your companies, there is only 15% of women in executive positions. So fewer women are in executive positions that are in engineering. And in engineering, I have to imagine if you do the statistical analysis on that, you can do that math yourselves. But you know, so it's a two-edged sword there, and we need to work on both sides of that. And if we can continue to look up in organizations and find most likely male sponsors at the top of these organizations who are willing to give women a chance and pull us up into those positions, then we can in turn be sponsors for other women that are below us. And we need to mentor each other the whole way through the process. So I'm really excited to be here with this panel of women. I think it's just amazing that I'm standing up here talking to you all. But I really appreciate it, and I hope you guys will all go back and think about ways that you can either mentor or find sponsorship in your organizations. There is a book out there if you want to know more. It's called Forget a Mentor, Find a Sponsor by Sylvia Ann Hewitt, and it's really a guide. It talks about all of this, and then it talks a little bit more about how you can go about finding a sponsor and ways to take advantage of that in your career. So, thank you very much.
So I have a quick reminder for you guys. Are you writing down your questions? By the way, these are awesome pens. So if you don't have one yet, grab one. They're fountain pens, which are very rare. Thank you, WashU. So yeah, write down your questions. I already have a couple. I'm deeply honored to have the opportunity to get to know Kristin, because as most of you guys know that know me, I will take you up on that offer. So Kristin's come up in the IT industry. Oh, I need to change the slide. Thank you. You know me, just start blabbering off. Lovely picture, too. You know, we definitely bring a softer side to engineering, don't we? It's a good thing, too, because you know what? Engineering is all about solving problems, and I can't think of anybody better than us to do that. So we're now going to look at the leadership required in that side, or what we can do in the leadership side, how we achieve it. And Kristin comes, I have to say, I've loved reading your bio. I come from an IT background as well. I worked in IBM for a while, so we'll have some things to talk about. But how we go forward and how we find sponsors, educate, and find a way to lead is really, really important. And I think we're all really starting to get that. By the way, Nicole, the numbers haven't changed since I graduated. So this is sad. The number of engineers that we're graduating hasn't changed much since 1984. Actually, 1990s, early 1990s. But something has to happen. And for those of you that joined us in the Lean-In discussion back in February, this was also a topic back then. So this is all tying together. I think we're all starting to see that. So without further ado, the next side of the coin.
When I graduated, computer science degree in hand, you know, that eager girl ready to go. My first boss was an amazing woman who saw something that she liked. She decided she was going to make a project manager out of me. At the time, the 22-year-old blonde chick who really didn't have much in the way of experience. Amazing, amazing adventure, and I wouldn't trade it for the world. You know, the people I graduated with, men and women alike, were working maintenance development jobs, paying their dues, you know, waiting their turn, and I was running fixed fee projects. One of the things that really stands out, though, were the conversations that we had that really had nothing whatsoever to do with project management. When you're meeting with the client, wear your hair back and the darkest suit you own, wear your glasses, don't wear contacts, and we will never, ever tell anyone how old you are. Do you think we would have had those same conversations if I would have been male? The whole discussion of women in leadership is gathering steam, and you guys all know that. Whether it's Sheryl Sandberg and Lean In, how many people have read Lean In? That's what I'm talking about. You know, and then there's Anne-Marie Slaughter and Why Women Still Can't Have It All. Everybody's got an opinion, right? I really, prior to tonight, haven't stepped back and looked at it from that macro level. I've worried more about what my world is supposed to look like. You know, that's really what we as women do, right? We figure out what all we have in front of us, and we figure out how to juggle it all and make it all work. Statistics, piggybacking on my friend Nicole, pretty staggering. There are just 4% of corporate CEOs who are women. 14% of executive officers. Just 20% of American government officials are women. And those statistics haven't changed in a decade, any of them, which is staggering to me. The thing that is interesting, though, as I was digging through and trying to figure out what the heck I wanted to talk about tonight, are the characteristics of those women that do make up those numbers and the things that set them apart and make them effective leaders. They seek out opportunity. You know, that's kind of been a trend that we've been talking about so far tonight. But if things don't go according to plan, they see it as an opportunity to learn all that they can for the next time they fail forward. Women look at things a little differently, right? Everybody here knows we look at things a little differently. We can be a little skeptical, but we look to get all the information that we need before we're going to move. Women bring passion to everything they do. Not the stereotypical emotional female. They look to invest themselves in what they're going to accomplish. These women leaders are not satisfied with okay. This was my favorite quote that I found. They are in passionate pursuit of excellence. I just love that as a concept, as an overarching philosophy, all of it. Passionate pursuit of excellence. I think that's fantastic. Women leaders tend to be entrepreneurial. Resourcefulness, creating relationships to build the world that they need to get things done. Entrepreneurship is equally as effective in large organizations as it is if you're hanging out your own shingle. You know, whether you're working at IBM or whether you're starting your own firm, you need to build those relationships and bring people together in order to accomplish goals. These women are purposeful, and they look to inspire others to achieve their goals as well. Tradition and family, of course, play a huge part in that. You know, I read a number of things, and it all came back to women are the glue that hold an organization together. As a woman leader in a male-dominated field, IT. I get mixed reactions. Libby can speak to that. She's known me for a long time, and she's been around my organization, and I get mixed reactions. I have a male business partner, so the trade-offs and how people react to each of us is interesting as well. I have more than 25 years of experience in my field, and I'm pretty direct in how I talk to folks. I flat out scare the tar out of some of the men that work for us. It's just fact. David, my business partner, Libby knows him as well. He has about the same amount of experience I do. We're about the same age. He's pretty direct as well. He doesn't get the same reaction I do. You know, everybody's like, oh, okay, David said this. Okay, we'll go with that. You know, the other thing that's really funny is over the years, people have assumed that David is the boss, right? He's the guy, and I'm along for the ride, of course. Over the 13 years, last week actually, kind of cool, that TDK has been around, we've pretty equally divided the responsibilities along the way. But I do have to point out that we are WBE certified, and I am the majority owner of the organization. Don't necessarily point that out, but people figure that out along the way. Again, I'm pretty direct. It's not just those stereotypes that we're fighting against, though, you know. We have to change the expectations that we set with our daughters when they're young. Had a conversation with my friend Michelle the other day about the word bossy. Sheryl Sandberg has another campaign that she started called Ban Bossy. Have you guys heard of this? The negative connotation that comes along with bossy, right? I call myself the bossy chick half the time anyway because, you know, kind of taking the edge off of things. Michelle and I were having this conversation. She has a friend who has smaller kids, a boy and a girl. And they started talking about being bossy. And this woman got this shocked look on her face, and she went, oh my gosh, I do that. And Michelle went, what do you mean? She goes, when my daughter starts taking charge, I tell her she can't be bossy, and I set her down and get on her about being bossy. But if my boy does the same thing, I redirect him and give him a better way to do it. She goes, oh my gosh, I'm one of those people. Michelle spent a little bit of time getting her calm back down and telling her everybody's gonna live. But, you know, it's kind of eye-opening, right? How we talk to our daughters from that young age and teaching them how to lead is critical to where we go from here. You know, along with the sponsors and all the rest of it, we've got to set that tone and tell our girls it's okay for you to be out in front and driving. And now I completely lost my place. Story of my life. It's an evolution, though. Just to completely beat the horse to death, Sheryl Sandberg again tells a story of a presentation that she gave at Facebook. Auditorium full of people, and she's up there presenting and gets to the end and decides she's going to do Q&A. So people are asking questions, and it's going along, and she reaches a point, she says, okay, 2 more questions. Finishes the Q&A. Young lady from the organization comes up and starts talking, and as they're going through the conversation, she says one of the big takeaways that she had was to keep her hand raised. Sheryl looked at her and said, I don't follow, what do you mean? She said, well, you said you were going to take 2 more questions. After that second question, the women put their hands down. The men kept their hands raised, and you kept taking questions. And as she's relating the story in a talk that she gave, she goes, what does it say that I, the lean-in chick, didn't recognize that amongst the people I was speaking to
And I continued that pattern, you know? So we all have a ways to go. From there, you go into the eternal debate about women in society in general, right? Some women choose a career path and family isn't their thing. Some women go down the path of family, you know? They stop their career and family is where they go. Some of us are insane and try and do both. Some days better than others. There's not a right or a wrong. You know, that's an individual choice, and it's something that is right for everybody, you know. Whatever that choice is, it's the right answer. But you know, there are articles out there that seem to imply that the women who do leave the workforce are letting us down because they're taking away the numbers of women who can rise, and that's part of the problem. They're not letting anybody down, they're making their choice. But it is a reality that some amount of our population does pull themselves out of the ranks. And it's a challenge that we as women looking to make that move into leadership, it's a challenge we have that men don't. You know, you don't see men in any kind of numbers walking away and saying, I'm going to be a parent. Whether you choose career path with or without a family, there are lessons we should be taking from our male counterparts. Keeping your hand raised for one. Number one, we've got to be proud of our accomplishments and own them. You know, rather than saying, oh, you know, I was lucky, I was in the right place at the right time, or, you know, it was all up, the team really did it. You know, we do that. When I started putting my notes together for tonight even, I started out with, I was incredibly lucky to fall into a position where blah, 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 blah. It's like, wait, I'm already contradicting myself, right? So we really need to own the things that we do and take credit for them. We have to learn to speak up. We have to learn to ask for that next opportunity. We've got to seek out those sponsors. There are statistics that I don't have with me about the number of women who have sponsors versus the number of women who have mentors versus the number of women who have men who have. I'm going to try that again because that was a mess. The number of women who have mentors versus the number of men who have sponsors. That's what I was trying to say. And we've got to flip that. We've got to find those people who can help pull us up. And we've got to be okay saying, I want that opportunity. I can do that. Let me show you I can do that. Have the confidence to take charge of that new project rather than letting all the people around you who may have more experience at it tell you how it should be done. If you own it, have confidence in what you know and how it should be done. Don't let everybody else tell you that their opinion is the right one. Ultimately, the power of women in leadership comes from our willingness to stand up and step out and take that lead. I encourage all of you to lean in, heck, dive in, keep your hand raised, be proud of what you do, own it, and ask for that next big step.
I don't know about you guys, but right now I'm feeling damn proud to be a woman. What do you think? Kristin, thank you. And I want to be bossy and the boss. Is that okay?
I think that's what I'm putting on my next business card.
I'm the boss and I'm bossy?
Mm-hmm.
deal with it. And you know what, ladies? I run my own company. I'm not quite to the point Kristin is. But I work in the building industry. I mean, my God, I was out today. I don't know if you guys noticed the mud all over my jeans because I was crawling in crawl spaces. And I'm telling this group of guys that they did something completely and utterly wrong, and it will not pass. And they all kind of look at me. And the two guys that are the liaisons, they go, "She said it. It stands." And I went, "Yes!" So I was bossy and the boss today. I loved it. So the last quadrant, anyway, thank you. So the last quadrant, does this make us a complete puzzle, is Jan Holloway. And oh my gosh, Jan, I got so excited when I had an opportunity to start working with you, I guess last year. Has it only been last year? Slides. You guys have to keep me on track. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you for being bossy and the boss. Stepping up. Whew. But the opportunity this organization has given all of us to meet just some amazing women that we all get a chance to work with has been so fun. I can't even talk. It's been fun, it's been fulfilling, and Jan has definitely been one of those. Jan has been with Monsanto for a lot longer than a lot of us like to admit, but you know what? We're proud of our experience, right? I know. I tell everybody, I'm 52 and I'm proud of it, so deal with it. But Jan gets an opportunity to do something that is so near and dear to my heart, and that is philanthropy and community service. And this is something I think as women that we naturally gravitate to. And so maybe here's an opportunity for us to excel and lead in something that we may naturally do. And I think Jan is just the ultimate picture of grace at doing it. I've seen her in action so many times, and it's such an honor to get to know you and to work with you. But philanthropy is, I think, just really something that's near and dear to all of us. So it's a key piece of what we do. So Jan will tell you more.
Yes, I get the capstone here. So once we understand how we work and how we connect, and then mentor and sponsor one another along the way toward leadership, we need to give back. And I think it's something that women naturally do very well. We bring our caring hearts to the community just as we bring them to business, along with the toughness and the bossiness. So how many people in here already volunteer? Because I know it's really encouraged here at the university, and it's something that I think is incredibly important. And I consider volunteering as well as donating both important parts of philanthropy. So I just wanted to spend a little time on volunteering and share a little bit about how I feel that giving back has really come back to me tenfold. So I started out volunteering at work. And I think Kristin talked about it, about just doing more, volunteering, raising your hand, offering to be on a special project or take on additional responsibility or be the one who comes in and works the weekend when extra work needs to be done. And it just allows you to show up in a very different way. It allows you to work with different people, get to know different parts of the business or the organization. And it allows people to see you in a very different way and see you doing things that don't come with your degree or with your job description or with the roles that you've already had. So I just think it's a tremendous opportunity to learn and grow and develop, and it will come back to you. I also probably about in the middle of my career actually, asked to be involved in the community, volunteering externally on a board. And I worked with the community relations organization to find the right match for my passions and my interests, and an organization that Monsanto supported. Because if you go and join a board of a nonprofit organization with a business card with, you know, with your company name on it. They're expecting that you're going to come with support from your company as well. So you want to make sure you're aligned with the areas that your company is investing in. And the first board I joined was the YWCA board, and it's an all-women board. I think it's one of maybe one of the only in St. Louis that's all women. And the connections that I made in that organization to those women who are on multiple other boards in St. Louis, whom I've since followed to other organizations, was just a fantastic start for me to really get to know a lot of terrific people, just as we've done with this group that we're connected to. And the thing that amazed me when I first joined the board, I was still relatively young in my career, is I had a lot of trepidation. I didn't know what I would have to give to that organization. But once you get there and learn what these nonprofit organizations do with a handful of people, all wearing 6 or 7 hats, and you're coming in from your educational background or the experiences that you've had in your companies and your organizations with ideas and contacts and processes, you have so much to share just right out of the gate that you can't imagine the difference that you can make for these people who are making such a difference in our community. So it's gratifying, and it's a way to work with a lot of terrific people that you will benefit from those relationships. And maybe just to tie the story all together, so from my volunteering at work and my volunteering in the community, I feel that's really what led me to the role that I have today. So I was in information technology for 20 years, and Kristin, we must have been in IT together at Monsanto. I didn't realize that. And I was, as I said, always volunteering, particularly volunteering for the people-oriented activities, designing new recognition programs or taking a look at our people review process. So I was always working with the HR group. And one day, our lead of HR left the company for a bigger, better job in Philadelphia, and there was not anyone available right then to fill in behind him. And he said on his way out the door, "Have Jan do it. She's been volunteering with us for years. She knows us. She gets HR. She knows what we're about. And she'll be able to look after the team until you can hire someone to take the role." And so the offer was presented to me. I just need you for 6 weeks to help out the HR organization while you're running IT, by the way. And you don't have to get deep in the organization because I'm going to bring somebody else in, but I need them to be represented, and you know they need a link to the leadership team. So of course I did it. And 6 weeks turned into almost a year. And so I did get really deep into the HR organization, a whole new appreciation for what that group brings to our organization. And it was so eye-opening for me, just the difference in the approach. And you know, in IT, if someone's knocking on your door, it's usually something that's not working, or some capability that we don't have yet. And you can pull the team together, you can lay out a project, you can set plans and milestones, you have a budget, you know exactly where you are all the way along the entire process, dealing with those conflicts along the way and merging those needs. But when you're in the HR function and someone knocks on your door, it's their career, it's their life, it's all about helping to improve what's going on with them. And it was so important to me that when we did hire the new HR lead, I did speak up and raise my hand and talk to my boss and said I would dearly love to do something completely different because it's been so much fun to do this.
So when the chief of staff role opened up, he offered it to me. And I think it's because he had seen me in a different light, leading the HR organization, following on leading the IT organization, and because I asked. So giving back comes back. And I do believe that whatever we can do to share what we have is just totally required of us, and particularly women supporting women. So I have a couple of quotes. One was Julia Child, and she's the soft quote, as you would imagine. She says, "Sooner or later, the public will forget you. The memory of you will fade. What's important are the individuals you've influenced along the way." And I think that speaks back to the sponsorship, the mentorship, the volunteering, the commitment. And then Madeleine Albright, who's a little bit more direct, says, "There is a special place in hell for women who don't help other women." So my involvement in the community, my involvement with women at Monsanto also led to that community relations aspect of my role. So once I'd been chief of staff for a few years, my boss recognized my commitment in the community and allowed me to take on that responsibility as well. So now my job is my passion, and I get to spend my time doing what really motivates me and allows me to feel terrific about this region, all the people that we have here, and everything that you all are doing for our region as well. This is National Volunteer Week, so please do so. Thank you.
OMG. Okay, so I'm going to recap really quick. And we have time for about 5-10 minutes worth of questions, right? So I was trying to, I took some notes. This is my new thing. I take notes, especially with really cool pens. So one of the things I wanted to take away from tonight when I came here, I decided to be more active when I go to these things, by the way. That was a conscious choice by me. So I came away with a quote from each of these ladies that I think maybe if you want it, we can post on LinkedIn, if you'll remind me, because I have no short-term memory. Anne, fail forward. That one's going down in history, ladies. Nicole. Nicole left because she had to go to her event. I forgot. Sponsors enable your dreams. Love it. Kristin. Women bring passion to everything they do. Love that one too. I loved all of them, or I wouldn't have written them down. Jan, giving back comes back.